Reprise de débat.
Resuming debate.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Vimy. Mr. Speaker, I have the great pleasure to take part in this debate on motion M157, and I'd like to underscore its fundamental importance to Canadian society. Canada has always been progressive in creating an inclusive environment, but there's still a lot of work to be done. According to Statistics Canada, 1 in 7 Canadians has a disability that impedes their daily lives. But there's a general lack of accessibility to housing and other things. People with physical mobility impairments are prevented from fully participating in society. And I believe the member for Tabik-Mactaquac has a vision for Canada, and the solution is there. This motion affirms his vision by calling on the government to take action, and I share that vision, and I think it can help make a difference. Passing this motion on visitability will create significant change beyond physical changes, because this will progressively reduce obstacles to communication and other forms of social inclusion. People who will benefit from a government initiative that follows the spirit of this motion will be more included in decision-making and conversation, in the social conversation, and this will help them overcome the hurdles they face. The minister could respond to this with accessibility legislation, and the public opinion could be taken into account, given that Canadians still face discrimination and disadvantages related to mobility impairment. This motion seeks to enhance social responsibility and ensure that every individual gets the support and the option to exercise their autonomy without being unduly hindered. When we have the ability and the resources to accommodate, visitability will improve everyone's quality of life, not just those with disabilities, but also seniors, parents with strollers, pregnant women, and people who use wheelchairs and other mobility devices. The concept of visitability goes beyond accessibility. 43.4% of Canadians over 65 are affected by pain, by vision loss, by loss of agility, and they must therefore limit their activities. 1/3 of Canadians 65 and over have problems with their daily activities because of mobility problems. This is a problem we need to recognize, because we will all be affected. When people start getting older, the environment grows increasingly uncomfortable. Houses become harder and harder to use and no longer meet our needs. And people can't use them in the same way they used to, given the sensory and physical changes that occur naturally with aging. Our houses, which were previously comfortable, grow increasingly into obstacles. Daily life can be more difficult. The stairs, the hallway, and there might not be room for a wheelchair, or there may be no bathroom on the ground floor. These can be problems. And this can cause seniors to expose them to potential injury from falls and so on. And all of this means that many seniors end up spending the last years of their lives in an institutional setting because they can no longer stay at home. It's not good enough to have institutions run by the government that meet people's needs. We should also create a society where every place is accessible. And violence against seniors is a growing concern in Canada. The security of seniors is an issue that family members have to take into account when choosing a retirement home or palliative care facility for their loved ones. Applying visitability principles in the construction of new housing would make it possible for a larger number of seniors to grow old and stay home. I'd also like to talk about the effect of visitability on women. Currently, about 53% of people with disabilities in Canada are women, and the violence and abuse rate against women with disabilities is among the highest of all groups in Canada. Inaccessibility makes it difficult and at times impossible for women to attend meetings where information is provided or decisions are made. Inaccessibility causes women with reduced mobility to live in places where access is difficult, and the economic instability of women with disabilities may lead them to be forced to live in places where they don't have basic accessibility, or where they don't have independence because they have to depend on their partners or other family members. Women with serious disabilities who can't afford accessible housing and who can't visit their loved ones may be deprived of the need that help they often need. Visitability would enhance the full integration of all women with disabilities. In order to allow these women to be equal participants in society, we have to keep putting the focus on accessibility. For these women, accessibility would have a significant impact. It's also important to realize that in attempting to achieve these goals, that will bolster our commitment to make change that vulnerable Canadians desperately need. We know that through various forms of funding, the federal government is working together with the provinces and territories and focusing on projects that will help get those projects underway. So the third point in M157 invites the federal government to address the subject of visitability with its provincial and territorial partners in upcoming FPT discussions. That's of crucial importance. Visitability should be considered as we move forward with affordable housing projects. We should be focusing on seniors and people with disabilities. All levels of government must work together to ensure that our most vulnerable countrymen are taken care of so that they can achieve the best possible quality of life. Furthermore, funding for accessibility in general is incredibly effective and helps communities restructure and remodel their institutions to accommodate people who otherwise wouldn't have been able to access inaccessible areas. Accessibility in private places is just as important as accessibility in public places, and that's what I wanted to underscore today. The need of Canadians who need better access is in keeping with the needs of the community. Accessibility standards and principles of inclusiveness should be enshrined in the framework that's used all through the process of funding for projects, as the member for Tabik-Mactaquac, the sponsor of this motion, has suggested. In conclusion, I strongly support this motion because I'm aware of the impact it could have. I know how damaging it is for people who can't go places, especially the most vulnerable, because they're inaccessible or because they don't have basic mobility equipment. Finally, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Perreault, the director of an organization, a not-for-profit in my riding, who does outstanding work on behalf of people with physical and intellectual disabilities, with or without handicap. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.